Now, the rest of the story.
Well, here I am. I wasn't sure if I wanted to make this video. That's why we get a cell phone quality. But I'm replanting. I don't necessarily want to say replanting. I guess I'm stitching in more beans. Emergence was pretty atrocious. I ended up getting a fourth of what I actually planted actually had come up. So I'm going through, I'm using my previous boundaries. Let's see here. That's actually a line that I drove the first time I planted it. This ag leader setup, being able to save your passes from previous years or previous times you've planted in the same year is really, really handy. And what I've been doing, I've found, is to set it for 15 inches offset of my last pass. So when I planted these, it's actually 15 inches off. It's not perfect. It's RTK guidance. And, whoops, that was close. The issue I'm dealing with is the fact that I set it over 6 inches like what I was recommended to when the seed salesman and my agronomists were all here. Put it 6 inches away over from your last pass, from that other existing row. Okay, makes sense. I get it. But what that doesn't exactly compensate for is drift. Even though it is RTK guidance, the tractor might be driving exactly where it needs to be, but that doesn't always compensate for the planter trying to pull itself left or right or down the hill. And that's something that you have to factor in too. An issue that I had this spring, which that isn't a very good headland turnaround. An issue I had this spring was, I'd show you my face, but we're gonna be looking at the sun. An issue I had this spring was actually the swath control. So when I was coming into a headland or I was getting to any spot where I needed the row shutoffs to engage or disengage, the issue I had was it was shutting off 3 feet before. Yes, it was shutting off 3 feet before I got to the headland. And then when I was starting from the headland and starting into the field, it was actually engaging 3 feet before it needed to. And that was the running theory I had as I was watching the corn coming up. It was compensating for the seed dropping from our old seed meters, because it actually had to drop down a tube. You know, it just would free fall and land on the ground. Well, with the belt drives that we got, the system that we have, the seed is pretty much already in the seed trench when it is told to engage. So it is almost not perfect, well, maybe perfect, it's probably the operator, engaging where the belt turns on and the seed is already in the seed trench. It is just that instantaneous. Working theory, yes, I think that's what it is. Adjusting the shut off, look ahead, and you know, the delays of turning it on and off. I mean, that's what the monitor does, but I have to tell it what I want, like how much of a delay I want it to have. I dropped it down from the one, I think the turning it off was 0.6 seconds, and then turning it on was 1.2. Because you got to remember, like in the finger meters, especially for corn, those fingers got to turn, and you know, hopefully all your seed is still in your fingers, but there's more going on there for it to actually start planting. And as far as so far, I like the setup. The planter was worth it. Stressful, tiring, exhausting. Worth it, yes. My only issue is where we were finding skips, like where there really should very obviously be a plant there wasn't any. And you know the reason for that? I would go through and dig it up, and the seed would be there. And one of two things happened. Number one was the seed had rotted in the trench. Now, I've been told that your germination is not 100% in a bag of seed corn. It's actually closer to 95%. And the thing is, because with the planter and this row units and everything, the vacuum setup, just the planter itself, now it is capable of putting those seeds right where they need to be. So you're seeing them across the field, you know, and then you're seeing a wider gap. Well, I paid for no gaps. Well, I'm finding the 5% of the seed that won't germinate because you dig it up and it's mushy. It's rotten. The other time was when you're digging them up and you're actually finding corn seed in dry dirt. Now, I was being cautious. I was trying to make sure I was planting down into the moisture in the soil. I was doing a lot of digging. 99% of our acres we were planting into moisture. The other 1%, you're finding the random seed that it just didn't germinate yet. It's still healthy, it's not rotten. It's just didn't do its thing. We haven't had any real measurable rain since I got done planting, and that was May 22nd. We've had a little like a spitzer yesterday, and there's moisture in the soil. So as far as getting downright full out panicky, yeah, I'm pretty well there. But no, realistically, we can go probably another week or two before we really have to start, you know, really doing some rain dances. And all of Dad's and Ryan's hay is made. We got waterway hay to make. I have to make the valley yet, and if I wasn't having to worry about doing all this, I would be going through and I almost went and panic cut it yesterday because I do have armyworms down there, and it doesn't pay at this point to go down and spray it because my goal is to go through and make it again anyway, or make it as soon as I can anyway. So as far as this stuff goes, I'm putting on a fake smile. I really am. It's not anybody's fault but the seed or the weather. The soybeans really just couldn't get up out of the soil. They germinated, but it got so hot and dry, the seed trench had cracked open. I mean, the waves do mitigate that. I mean, they covered the seed and everything, but the seed trench still had cracked open, and the beans were actually breaking the heads off at the stem because the stem is cracking off because it can't pull the heads through the cracks in the soil. It's that hard. So with this, there is moisture there. When I harvested the corn off this last year, we hit it with the rhino cutter, and then the rhino cutter made a matted material that I pushed off to the side. You know, I pretty much strip tilled it in, you know, the way this is set up. Well, everywhere in between the rows, going through and planting into that corn residue has trapped that moisture. That's right, it has trapped that moisture. And I'm actually hitting a lot of these right into enough moisture. I'd like to think they can at least germinate, get coming up, and then hopefully by then we actually have some rain, because the crops themselves are in just that ugly stage. Even with rain, they just look ugly, and really hoping you're gonna start playing nice. I'm really hoping that with a shot of rain, I think everything's just gonna really take off. I mean, all of our first cut alfalfa, all the regrowth, our regrowth for second cut is coming up really nice. A lot more than what we really thought it would. But hay might get interesting too if we don't get much for rain. I mean, the grass looks nice right now, but you know, minus the armyworms I got to deal with, but we'll see. This is it for planting. I'm not planning on doing any more planting videos. I mean, I should have been done 2 or 3 weeks ago. You can row the beans, but the amount of gaps that they have is just atrocious. And I hate replanting with an absolute passion. This right here is why the 79 sat in the shed with all the monitors and the globe and the planter all hooked up on it yet. I got within 30 minutes of taking it off the other day and I decided against it because I got busy. But looking back, I'm grateful I did because I didn't have to go through and redo everything. The seed discs were taken out and all that, but power takeoff, pump was taken off. But I didn't disconnect the batteries or unhook the planter altogether. I've done that before, having to pull the planter back out after it was tucked away in the back of the shed. That was in 2017. Pretty well the exact same conditions when I had to plant back in 2017 is exactly why I have to go through and plant a few more beans throughout the field. This will at least get it back up above, as long as all these germinate to a certain degree. It'll get me back up above to where my original goal was as far as my plant population. So it's planting right down the middle of the rows works a lot better, allowing for any meandering that you may have with the planter, because it seemed like when I first started, no matter what I did, no matter where I drove, how I drove, where I steered the tractor, never failed. It's a very tiny target, but I was hitting all 12 rows of the previous crop, and that stuff still is valuable. It'll still produce something, and that's right now is what we're hoping for, is everything that goes on here is going to produce something. Last time I did it, it was 30 bushel to the acre. Hoping for just a touch more than that this time around. Granted, the planter, when I replanted even back then, was not set up like it is now. Did not have the Schlegels, did not have the wave, did not have the hydraulic downforce, or these row cleaners. These row cleaners are wicked. We should have better results. It's just lack of rain. Typically we could have counted on some form of rain, moisture, after I got this stuff planted, and it just didn't happen. I'd really like to be able to make this grass, but I can't. I'm not allowed to. So, alright, that's it for this video. Stay tuned for valley haymaking videos, because that pretty much is, other than selling a load of steers tomorrow, focusing on getting all the haying equipment ready to go again. This guy cleaned out. Probably have this on the rake and try to go down and make what we can down at the valley. I'd feel a lot better if I had at least the sheds down there filled up. That's about 250 bales. Everything else, either I'd haul it home and kind of add to my feed pile, because I'd feel a little bit better knowing I got enough feed to get through the rest of this year for my cows. So, thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you later.